point to where they're probably not going to use him again, or they have to go back to the drawing board to figure out how they can recoup any kind of believability in the Fiend, since his loss is a very odd loss at that at WrestleMania. When I say odd loss, it basically like Alexa Bliss took over the character and Randy Orton RKO'd him. One RKO and he won. The same guy that took like 10 curb stops and didn't get down. One RKO, he stays down. It's disappointing to say the least. Either way, on Tuesday we get NXT Toni Storm versus Zoe Stark. This was a good match, very entertaining. This is an example of WWE at towards its best. Storm got the win, but both of them look really, really good here. Then they have Indy Hartwell and Candice LeRae getting a massage. This kind of reminded me of AEW's Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone, but I'll be honest with you, AEW's was funnier and more entertaining, with Tony Schiavone not really making sense why he's getting all the massage and pedicures and the spa stuff with Britt Baker. But either way, Dexter Lumis was there and listening in the conversation. Indy was basically saying it's probably best that they're not with Dexter, and that changes later on in the night. But either way, that's what the whole conversation was. Not that great of a segment. Then you get the build to Balor and Karrion Kross 2 for next Tuesday. That looks good. That's pretty much all I can say about that. Is it looks good. Next we get Cameron Grimes versus Jake Atlas. Cameron Grimes is having this little bit of a feud with Ted DiBiase, which I don't know what the conclusion would be, because it's not like Ted DiBiase is going to wrestle Cameron Grimes. But basically, they're kind of feuding where DiBiase is making Grimes look like an idiot. But either way, because of that, in this match with Jake Atlas, DiBiase distracts Grimes and Atlas gets the win. And I believe the line that Grimes utter is "Damn that Ted DiBiase." So I don't know where they're going to go with this, but that is part of the storylines that they got going on in NXT, and one of the more entertaining storylines. Next, we get Alexander Wolf versus Killian Dane. We basically had two guys from Sanity face each other. Alexander Wolf is part of the group from Europe, and I'm blanking on their name right now. But ultimately, Dane wins. Imperium was a group. Damian wins, and Imperium beats down Wolf. We then see that Alexander Wolf the next day, this is part of the cuts that NXT had, was cut by WWE. It looks like he's going back to Germany because of his visa and probably has to get that worked out. I was hoping to see him in Impact because I would like to see him in Violent by Design with Eric Young. I think he would fit. But it looks like he's going back to Germany. So if that's where he wants to go and that's where he'd be happy, good for him. We had Legado del Fantasma versus Ciampa and Thatcher. His last name was Wild. I'm blanking on his first name, but he used to be Zema Ion and Impact. It was good to see him work here. It was a very entertaining match, but ultimately Grizzly Young Vets interfered and Legado got the win because of that. It looks like Grizzly Young Vets are going to be in a feud with Ciampa and Thatcher going forward. Ciampa and Thatcher, even though they seem like an odd group to pair together, I like it. I'm a big fan of Ciampa. I think Timothy Thatcher is a throwback to a very Chris Benoit style of wrestling. So I'm all for it. We then get Bobby Fish backstage, and he calls out Pete Dunne for a match. Next, we then get the parlor cut again. At this point, Indy and Casey are talking about Dexter Lumis, and then she finds out that Dexter sent her flowers, and now she's very anxious to date, essentially, Dexter Lumis. A weird thing going on there with the Way and Dexter Lumis. The Way being Johnny Gargano, Austin Theory, Candice LeRae, and Indy Hartwell. We then get a match against Aaliyah against Saray. Saray gets the win. I didn't make much notes about this, so this match didn't really stand out to me. We then get a backstage promo with Shotzi Blackheart and Ember Moon. Shotzi is one of the people I really like in NXT. I totally dug the whole promo here where they're basically them on top of the tank talking about their desire to get the NXT Women's Tag Team Championship, or no, not NXT, but the overall Tag Team Championship for the women's. And I would honestly like to see it. Those two talents I really, really like entertained by. Would like to see them beat Candice LeRae and Indy Hartwell to get or regain those belts. So we'll see. We get a debut from the group called Hit Row. There's ultimately a squash match. Then they cut a promo after. I totally dig their work. The promo here was pretty good. Nothing much else to add to it at this point. So we'll see how NXT was on this the following week's television. We then get Bronson Reed versus Johnny Gargano. This was a really, really good match. It was a cage match. Ultimately, Bronson Reed did walk away with the championship. He did the splash for the win, and he is now North American champion. Bronson Reed, he's been a very entertaining talent from what I've been seeing on NXT. He's actually one of the guys I really like in NXT. And it's nice to see that they had him beat Gargano here and take the title off of Gargano and take the title essentially away from the way. This is going to play out on television where there's more storyline. Gargano's going to whine about him losing the championship, try to get rematches, and basically be all up in William Regal's business to try and make this happen. But ultimately, Johnny Gargano did put over Bronson Reed, and I hope Bronson Reed keeps the title for a bit and is dominant with that title. Next, AEW on Wednesday. So the following week, AEW is going to be on Friday. They brought that up multiple times. So basically, AEW will air. Next AEW airing is on May 28th, starting at 10 p.m. A special edition of Friday Night Dynamite. Has a nice ring to it. Be nice if they put it there instead of Rampage, but it is what it is. We then get a Christian versus Matt Sydal match. This was a back and forth. I don't remember if these guys were in WWE at the same time. But either way, it was a good match. It was very entertaining. They shook hands and hugged after it, but Christian did get the win with the kill switch move. There was a great promo from Mox and Kingston before their match against the Acclaim. Mox and Kingston did this little bit of back and forth bit where Mox pretended he didn't know who the Acclaim was, and they kind of threw jabs here and there about the Acclaimed in it, whether or not they're rappers, whether or not they're any good. Then to the ring, the Acclaim cuts a rap where he basically asks why Kingston dresses like he's from '04 and that he looks like a Newport, and that Mox's wife is trying to call him for oral sessions because oral sessions is the name of Renee Paquette's podcast. But either way, Acclaim got defeated and Mox and Kingston won. Here they go on to face the Bucks for the titles at Double or Nothing. There was something on Twitter where basically I think it was Dax Harwood was complaining about the fact that Kingston and Mox got tag title matches before them. And either way, I think this is just a storyline. It's something else for the Pinnacle to complain about on TV. It's a nice little heat build to where once they're done with Stadium Stampede, that they'll probably face Mox and Kingston and or the Young Bucks. And whether or not the Young Bucks retain here or not, I kind of suspect that they're going to retain, and I think the next ones to take the belts off the Bucks will be FTR. That's just my opinion. We'll see what happens. There was a Jericho Malenko backstage event. They're talking. One of the guys came up and asked Jericho about whether or not they're going to accept the challenge from the Pinnacle. Jericho basically said, we'll do it on our time. And he points to Malenko saying, you don't want to make the Band of 1,000 holds angry. And Malenko looks at Jericho and says, I still can't believe you have 4 more than me. And then Jericho says he forgot some. Nice little bit, kind of tossed back from when they're in WCW together and their whole rivalry that they had going. One of the most entertaining things that Jericho's ever done. Any case, you get the Pinnacle backstage. Pinnacle sitting at a dinner table talking about, basically the match with CM Stampede. At which point Shawn Spears basically kind of attacks the waiter. But it is what it is. It did what it's supposed to do. It furthers the storytelling between the Pinnacle and the Inner Circle. They try to make Shawn Spears look like a loose cannon. It is what it is. We then get Hikaru Shida versus Rebel. This was a DQ match because Rebel basically hit Hikaru Shida with the crutch. But that was it. And I think that's really... And Britt Baker went in and attacked her as well. So I think this only was to further Britt Baker's storyline with Hikaru Shida. Nothing more. Then we get backstage with Orange Cassidy and Omega and Don Callis. Don Callis and Omega are trying to convince Orange Cassidy that he got hurt and he should probably relinquish his title chance right now to face Omega at a later point. Cassidy, they hand Cassidy a paper to sign off on it. Cassidy did the slowest paper rare ever. And then Don Callis tries to do it again. Omega tries to convince him, and they kind of leave it at that. And it's supposed to be a response by next week whether or not Cassidy will wrestle. If there is an issue with him having a concussion, this is the best way you could play it out on TV. I don't recall him having a concussion, but if he did get a concussion, that's a good way to play it out, whether or not he'd be medically cleared. If not, I don't like the storytelling because I really think Orange Cassidy in the mix between Pac and Omega will be a very interesting dynamic. We've already seen Pac and Omega, and we've already seen Pac and Cassidy. We just haven't seen all three together. Or even Omega and Cassidy. So it'll be a nice little thing to see here. We then get it backstage with Jake Cargill and Tony Schiavone, and Mark Silver then tries to offer his services as well. Jake Cargill tells him off. And that was basically the end of that segment. We then get Red Velvet versus Serena Deeb. This is a good back and forth match. Serena Deeb being the NWA Women's Champion. WWE missed the boat with her. She's a really good performer. She did come up on top and keep the belt, but overall it was a really good match. Made both women look strong here. Probably the best thing they could have done with trying to get something to show Red Velvet to be a valuable talent on Dynamite. We then get Austin Gunn versus Anthony Ogogo. This was a ref stoppage because Anthony Ogogo laid in a couple shots on Austin Gunn and it made it look like he was bleeding out the mouth. This is just realistically just to further the storyline between Cody Rhodes and Anthony Ogogo. I do hope that Anthony Ogogo does beat Cody at Double or Nothing. I think that's what makes sense to happen, especially considering Cody's supposed to be off TV for a while because he's about to have a child. I do not like the fact that Cody's calling himself the American Dream, basically for one night only. I get it. Dusty Rhodes was his dad, but at this point, it seems like you're just milking it for the wrong reasons. We don't need that. You already go by the American Nightmare, and then you're trying to make this a USA versus UK thing. But there's a time and place, and I don't think this is the time and place for it. We then get backstage with Kaz and Daniels, where the interviewer tries to ask Daniel what's he going to do next now that they can't be a team. He doesn't really answer him. Kind of whispers in Kaz's ear. Kaz doesn't really say what was said, and that's the way they kind of leaving it open. I was kind of hoping we find out whether or not they are going to continue on a singles run or one of them is going to retire, whether it be probably would be Daniels. But nothing was really illustrated here, so it left me more questions than answers, which is probably you want to do leading into Double or Nothing. You want to keep people watching TV, tuning in next week to try and see what will be answered, which AEW seems to do a lot with answers happening on the following week. We then get the Varsity Blondes versus the Young Bucks. The Varsity Blondes look really good here. You could tell they're up and coming tag team between Brian Pillman Jr. and Griff Garrison, but both guys look really, really good. The Bucks made them look like $1 million here. Ultimately, the Bucks did win, but at the same time, they did look like they could have lost this match. I hope that AEW keeps building up the Varsity Blondes and keeps building up Austin Gunn, because at this point, those guys are looking good and probably are ripe for the picking, especially with them getting a second show to where you can highlight those. Right now they got 2 YouTube shows with AEW Dark and AEW Dark Elevation. They already have Dynamite and they're about to get Rampage, so they have the opportunity here to kind of establish every talent that they have that maybe didn't come from a different company, whether it be Impact, whether it be New Japan, whether it be WWE, Ring of Honor, what have you.